I'm Stelio Stefanou, Chair of the For Baby's Sake Trust, and I'd like to welcome you to today's launch. Approximately 650 people have signed up. I think we've reached about 350 online already. And that's a reflection of how important and urgent you believe the issues that we're about to discuss are. Many of those with us today have provided help and encouragement along our journey, and we're grateful that you've been able to make the time to attend the launch. We hope that you'll find it interesting and perhaps moving. Many of you will remember reading about baby Peter, who died in 2007 at the age of just 17 months. Predictably, fingers were pointed and sackings took place. But whether or not these recriminations were right, they would not improve the prospects of tens of thousands of baby Peters across the country. Each tragedy is unique, yet what is so often present is the intergenerational pattern. The fate of so many children is sealed from the time their parents were themselves children and had experienced the emotional neglect and domestic abuse that would stay with them into adulthood and parenthood. It's been a full 12 years since the germ of an idea about how to address such tragedies has developed into a program that is transforming people's lives in a profound way. I was going to thank each group of people, many of whom are attending today, for their input in getting us to this point. But I was persuaded by our senior team that reading out a very long list would take up too much time and maybe even send some of you to sleep. So suffice it to say, thank you for your part in helping us to create For Baby's Sake. However, there is a group of people that I just have to thank, and they are our teams of practitioners, team leaders and programme officers in West London, Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Blackpool. They give so much of themselves every day in working with our mums, dads and babies, making themselves available when our families need support and counsel. We will see from the short film the quality and impact of the work they do. Also, I'd like to acknowledge our mums, dads and babies on the programme, which is demanding and requires an epic commitment from them. Having been involved with this for some years now, I'm in no doubt that early trauma is at the core of so many of our society's ills, ranging from anger, violence, worklessness, relationship breakdown, ill health, substance abuse, and more. This places a huge burden on the nation and stretches resources to such a point that we can't hope to recruit and train sufficient numbers of people to provide these services. And the biggest tragedy of all is that of the wasted lives, generation after generation. The good news is that in partnership with other agencies, we can fundamentally improve people's prospects. It's so tempting and understandable that we become angry at the many things that are wrong in our society. Yet this anger alone will not fix these problems unless and until we address their root causes. Well, this is a chance to start fixing at least one of our society's major ills. Dr. Cheryl Adams is Executive Director of the Institute of Health Visiting, and we're extremely pleased that she has agreed to chair the event today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I was absolutely delighted to chair this session. I've been involved with some of those who are here today and have reached this point actually over about 15 years. And I just know how committed they are and really want to make a difference, as I'm sure all of you in the audience are too. You are in for a very special morning. It's not every day that you hear about solutions for some of our most challenging areas of work. But before we start, inevitably, there's a little housekeeping. So do tweet #ForBaby'sSake, that's all one word, #ForBaby'sSake, and do use the chat function to share your thoughts, your feelings, and any questions for the Baby's Sake team. They will be in touch with you after the event, and they'll be picking up on the main themes for the report, so you will get feedback. The chatting function is actually turned off. We can't see it, which is a relief because I think it would be very distracting. I'm sure it's flying at the moment. It is a short session this morning. It's only an hour, so I ask that you stay very focused, as will all the speakers. But it's going to be an incredibly interesting hour, so just listen and hang on their every word. Now, to start the proceedings, I'd like to introduce, first of all, the animation, and that will be followed by a presentation from Nicole Jacobs, who will speak immediately after the animation. And Nicole is a domestic abuse commissioner. Thank you.
Both my mum and dad probably had their own challenges growing up. Certainly my mum did.
My dad was an alcoholic. He was very angry, very depressed.
Things were good and then they'd be bad, and there was a lot of instability.
I was a teenage delinquent, stealing cars, selling drugs, just making a nuisance of myself.
I learned to be quiet and keep things inside, and then really escaped in my imagination, and that's where I came alive.
I met my girlfriend. It was kind of like in the movies.
It turned my world upside down. We had that bond.
Within 2 months of that, she was pregnant. I think we both kind of went into panic mode.
It was very stressful. The idea of being homeless and pregnant. Where are we going to get the money?
We started having quite bad arguments.
And he put his hands around my neck until I couldn't breathe. Which is what led us into For Baby's Sake.
I kind of came into the program thinking, am I just broken beyond repair?
The practitioner, she helped me find so much clarity. It triggered me into a very dark place. Obviously we were dealing with domestic abuse, but it didn't feel like we were just pointing the finger.
He was very respectful, listened very carefully to what I was saying. How on earth are we going to have a kid? And just helped me come up with practical solutions.
To be able to work through these self-destructive patterns, make some peace with the past, putting tools in place to keep me safe and to keep him safe too.
At every stage we had someone that really was trained and knew what they were doing, explaining to us what our baby was going through. And we had more space for us to figure out our relationship.
It's allowed me to heal and come into myself. What are you doing? It's given me confidence to be a good mum.
I can be a bit less erratic now. I can live a normalish life and have a family.
He has two parents that want to do whatever it takes to be the best parents they can be for him.
He's had the best start in my family as far back as anyone can remember, and that is not an accident.
I don't know how many times the two of us have said thank God for baby's sake. It's been life-changing.
I wanted just to say thank you to you all for coming. So many of you, I can see, are saying in the chat that how brilliant that video is and how powerful it is. And I just think probably on behalf of us all, we'd like to say a huge thank you and gratitude to Emma for really showcasing your talent in being able to bring those thoughts into a really short but powerful video. And so congratulations to you, and I hope that I think you're going to an event tomorrow where possibly you've been nominated for this. So I hope you'll win, because in our mind I think you have, in terms of really getting across what we want to convey about domestic abuse and what's needed. My name is Nicole Jacobs, and I'm the Domestic Abuse Commissioner for England and Wales. And I found that video really powerful because it really locates the focus on the child, and really helping to showcase how For Baby's Sake helps parents really focus on their child and what their child is needing, and how they're developing and what their needs are in the middle of what can be very often for any new parent a very stressful time, but particularly if you add the dynamics of domestic abuse and violence in the home, that makes the situation so much more complex. And so I think that really struck me watching the video. And I think what else struck me, which we don't often see, is just such a positive regard for the whole of the family. So a positive regard in terms of helping for all members of the family and what their needs have been, what maybe challenges or trauma they've had in the past, and really respecting that everyone in that family needs some support, and proper support, which I suppose is the third thing that really struck me and has always really struck me in my advantages of being able to talk to the For Baby's Sake team over the last couple of years, is the ambition to really give such a comprehensive, proper service to the family. I often think that in domestic abuse, we have to remind ourselves that 40 some years ago, we had very little interventions in place. We may have had the beginnings of some refuge provision. And over the years, we've built up interventions, and there's been innovations. But I think we would all agree, or we wouldn't be here in such high numbers, that we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of really addressing domestic abuse comprehensively, properly. We often wait until things have gotten to a crisis point, where things are way down the line in terms of harm and trauma, and then we try to address it. And I think as was said earlier, the cost of that to society, the cost of that to people and to children living through that are tremendous. And so what I really admire about the ambition of the film that it shows, and For Baby's Sake in general, is to say that these are situations that really deserve, at the earliest point, our time and attention, and that the payoffs are huge, not just for that child, which is of course our primary concern, but for all of the family and for the future of that family and the systems that they may not have to access into the future, in terms of the whole of our society. So I just want to reflect those thoughts about For Baby's Sake in general, which is just so beautifully shown in the video. So thank you for that. I wanted to just, for those of you who may not have met me before, just to say a little bit about my role, just so you're aware of it and how I think it ties into the kind of the future work of For Baby's Sake, but also the whole breadth of services that we need and that ambition that we share. There's a domestic abuse bill that is headed to the House of Lords very shortly, and still needs a bit of improvement. It does acknowledge children in their own right as victims of domestic abuse, which is excellent. And it gives us a proper definition of domestic abuse, and it does some and proposes and will create change in particularly a criminal justice system, family court. It also gives my role a statutory underpinning. So I won't forgive you if you've never heard of the Domestic Abuse Commissioner role before. It's a brand new role, essentially, and I'm working as a designate now. And as soon as the legislation passes shortly, I'll drop that role and work as the Domestic Abuse Commissioner. And a lot of my role in doing that, my team is sitting in the next room, and we've been talking all day yesterday about the kind of work that we're starting to undertake and will really get underway in coming months, about the mapping of provision, the real greater drive for consistency from area to area in terms of what good looks like. Thinking about really making sure that children's voices, survivors' voices, are really integral to our day-to-day work. And there's a lot of ways we can do that, but one way is to really help make what is exceptional practice more common practice. So there's a lot of things to do in every direction in terms of our crisis work, and the whole of what I tend to call the coordinated community response, everyone playing their part, doing their part, and really recognizing and addressing domestic abuse, but also making sure that we can really understand and recognize practice that is getting to prevention and early intervention, which sadly we very, very often are not prioritizing, or not able to prioritize, even though everyone would agree it's where we need to prioritize. And so I would hope that some of the connection between my role and the work that my office will do will really help to highlight some of these really exceptional practices where we're really investing the time, the energy, the expertise, and understanding of what families really need, so that we can eradicate domestic abuse. We all have to have that ambition and that dream. And I know that that's very much the underlying emphasis of For Baby's Sake. And so I appreciate we're time limited. I really thank you for being able to allow me to introduce myself to you today, and to really help to underscore how much I think we need this kind of level of expertise and innovation in our sector, and how I think this is the way that we will start to really, really address domestic abuse in a meaningful way, and really get to where we need to be in terms of what families deserve and what children deserve. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your discussion, and congratulations, Emma, and For Baby's Sake, for such a great start to our mid-morning. And I hope that everyone can see this video. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was so helpful and fantastic to hear that there's going to be a post such as yours. I'm going to really look forward to talking to you about the contribution of health visitors. But thank you for speaking up for babies, because nobody else speaks up for babies. And it's just so important that we start right at the beginning. And we all know, everybody on this call will be committed to that. We're rather hoping that there might be an amendment to the legislation for babies, children, and
Yes.
families, because we think that needs to be emphasized more.
Yes, excellent. There's 400 people plus who are on this call who it's a perfect time to be contacting your legislator. And in fact, the window is quite short now. So please prioritize it, put it on your to-do list, and get in touch and let them know how you feel about that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, now we must move on. And I'd like to introduce Frank Mullane. Frank is CEO of Advocacy After Fatal Domestic Abuse, which I have to be honest is an organisation I'm not familiar with, so I'm really looking forward to hearing from Frank. And Frank is the first ambassador for the For Baby's Sake Trust. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being in the audience. In 2008, 5 years after my brother-in-law murdered my sister and their son, I set up Advocacy After Fatal Domestic Abuse, AFDA. Since then, we've helped hundreds of families, and I have personally quality assured 800, thereabouts 800 domestic homicide reviews. And what I'm looking for when I'm doing that work is that the people doing this reviewing are looking through the eyes of the people in the community, and not just through the eyes of those providing the services. And I see that work in the For Baby's Sake program. That's what attracted it to me. I thought, wow, it looks like they're putting the little booties on and sitting in the pram and trying to see the world through the baby's eyes. How remarkable is that? So this work is about addressing the needs of the parents and the baby, because they're impacting each other. Set aside judgment. How wonderful is that? Meet the parents where they are now, not where we think they should be. I absolutely love that. And that kind of thinking really imbues and underscores effective reviewing. So it's very similar to the kind of culture of reviewing. Thank you. I don't think I said my name, and I promised I would, so I'll just say it now. It's a bit clumsy, I'm so sorry. My name is Frank Mullane, even though you said it, Cheryl. I promised to say it afterwards. Sorry, everybody, what a clown. Thank you to Stelio and for Baby's Sake team. First for their work and second for the invitation to speak today. But thirdly, for the huge honour to be the first ambassador of this programme. And I am so touched by that and hugely moved, because I absolutely love the idea that you get right in at the beginning, just as Nicole is saying as well, and trying to stop it all happening. At the moment, we're at the other end, at the crisis end, and we can't stop the root causes to which Stelio so eloquently alluded. I have to say, Emma, I loved the film. I don't have a vote in your thing that's going on tomorrow. See if you can get me a few votes. I loved the film because I'm not a filmmaker, so I'm a real punter just watching this film and telling you how I feel. And I loved what I think might be described as the minimalist style, because what that does is not distract me. It means the messaging gets straight to my heart, where I think my best decisions are made. And that message about making peace with the past really jolted me. And I thought, yes, we can stop the past from controlling the present. We can remove that shame barrier. And I loved that line in the film. I really loved this about the practitioner listening very carefully to the father there, and of course the mother. And I always remember what I got taught over the years through being ineffective at communicating. I often got reminded, Frank, the key number one requirement of effective communication is effective listening. Must come first. So well done for Med Films. It made me exclaim out loudly that of course babies must be in the definition of victims of abuse. Now this programme first caught my eye because it was not about waiting for the current reality to be something different with which we could work. It was about saying, look, it is what it is now, and we are going to go in there and work with it now so we can change tomorrow's now, so that tomorrow's reality will be different. I love that courageous, get in the arena, be pragmatic and sort it out now. I love that concept. So let's work with the families, they're saying, make babies safe and ensure they get the best possible chance to develop fully. And I always think of Maslow's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can sort out the fire and the shelter and all that kind of stuff. That's a crisis response. But how do we get people to self-actualize fully, be wonderful human beings that have reached their potential? It must be about freeing them from trauma and all sorts of things. I'm not a psychologist. Check in with a few psychologists on that, but I feel I'm right now. And isn't this sort of giving babies a voice? By the way, this giving babies a voice is not actually new. It's happening for real already. I stumbled into a conference recently. All the delegates were babies. Did a bit of a double take and I thought, what the hell's going on here? I looked up at the stage. There was a lectern there. And all there was behind the lectern was a big pram. I couldn't even see the baby, but I could hear a language that I used to speak. So did you. This baby in the pram must have been giving a keynote speech, the delegate babies, because they were all bawling and wailing. So it sounded like the speech was really going well. I know you don't believe me. If you do, you need to just think about it. Imagine if that were true. What might that baby in the pram be saying? And what stories would those baby delegates reveal in the question and answer session that I assume they'd have on the agenda? I couldn't read the agenda either because it was in baby scribble. But most of my experience and knowledge in this sector is when domestic abuse escalates to fatality. I've been in this sector 17 years now. And that includes babies, of course, infanticide. But a lot of harm is done to adults and babies who will never get killed. or the For Baby's Sake program is saying, let's reduce this harm now by investing time and resources now with families and babies right at the beginning. And yes, that's why I'm so tough to be ambassador. Getting it sorted, it feels so powerful. We're going to do something now. What could in fact be more sensible? And it must be preventing homicide. I am so proud to be the first ambassador of this program, because it's doing something now about the life chances of these babies, and it recognizes that to give the baby the best chance in life, forget about aspiration and planning into some degree here, I'm muddling it maybe, but get into today's reality. Get it sorted now, work with today's reality. It's that courage, and because it is an evidence-based program, that I feel that I can throw my full weight behind it, breaking the cycle of domestic abuse. And because it's informed by values that I hope that we all share. And you'll be pleased to know that I'm coming up to the end. So finally, I recall a time at a conference when I first met the people running the For Baby's Sake program. After chatting with them, I felt really, really touched by it. But I had this thought that kept going through my mind as I was driving home. And I thought, right, many of us have and will meet babies in our daily interactions. And we must have thought some of those babies, you know, are in danger, or maybe in danger, or that home looks worrying. This baby could be in trouble. Now, those same babies, it's highly possible that we may well meet some of them again when they're grown up, many, many years later. When we meet them again, do you think that we could look them in the eye, straight in the eye, without flinching, because we know we did do something when we first met them as babies all those years ago? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Frank. That was a very wide-ranging and powerful presentation, very thought-provoking, certainly. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on the film, which I think are the thoughts that would have been going through everybody's heads. And Amanda Celio, I well understand why Frank is your first ambassador, and what a supporter to have. So well done. Okay, so we're going to move on now, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Jill Dominy, who is research clinical psychologist at the Institute of Psychiatry at King's College in London. Jill, over to you.
Thank you. First, just to say thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real privilege to be part of this webinar, and congratulations on the animation. It's really incredible. So I was part of the team at King's College who evaluated the early phase of For Baby's Sake. And alongside that, I was very lucky to have the opportunity to interview some of the fathers who were taking part in the programme. And that's the data that I want to share with you today. So this is going to be a real whistle-stop tour of some of the results of those interviews, which help to highlight some of the insights and reflections of fathers in the programme. And actually there's quite a bit of overlap, I think, you'll see, with some of the ideas that come up in the animation as well. So just to say, this is going to be quite speedy, but if you are interested and want to read more, this has recently been published in the Infant Mental Health Journal, and I'll share the citation of that at the end, so you can go and have a look in a bit more detail. So just to briefly say what some of the aims and methods of this were. So the aim was really broad, to explore the experience of becoming a father in a sample of men who were engaging with For Baby's Sake. So the interviews were all completed in the first year of the programme. All the men were postnatal. I analysed it using thematic analysis, and in terms of our sample, we had 10 men. They were all white British. They were mostly from the Hertfordshire site, just under 30 years old, and all of them were in a relationship with the mother at the time of the interviews. So there are 4 themes that came out of the data, and the idea is that I'm just going to share with you what those themes were and give you a couple of quotes to help you understand that data a bit better. So the first theme, of called Conceptions of Fatherhood, really captured by this idea of being everything my dad wasn't, which came out really strongly in lots of the data. So this theme captures things around where men learn about being a father, how they understand the role, what they think is a good dad. So you can see in the top left this idea, how do you know how to be a dad? Obviously it's all over TV, isn't it? Fathers fathering people. You just pick it up and adapt it to your own life, I suppose. So capturing really that idea that perhaps at this stage it doesn't feel like a conscious choice, you just take it on. And then in the top right, baby's mum, sort of, they just know, don't they? I don't know how, they just do. It's mother's instinct, which also helps to highlight the idea that this man doesn't feel that he just knows. He's not sure what to do. And then there's a lovely quote down at the bottom asking about what makes a good dad. Just make them feel loved, feel like they do belong here. They are safe and happy, fed and watered. They can talk to me if they need to. That's basically it. And I like this quote because he makes it sound like it's so simple, but he's actually captured an enormous depth of what it means to be a father. So the next theme that came out was this idea of an emotional transition. It's a huge life-changing thing. And this theme captures issues around relationship changes, mental health difficulties, and dealing with poor emotional regulation. So at the top, this man says, if you have struggles in your relationship and your relationship ends, you don't have to see each other ever again if you don't want to. When you've got children, you do. So you have to put all your feelings aside and you have to come back and still be a dad, which I really like because he really gets that difference between the couple relationship and the co-parenting relationship and having to navigate between them. Then down in the bottom left, it's easy to jump straight back to that defensive mode where you're panicking. It can be something innocent, but then when you talk to them, your partner, you're angry at them and they can't understand why. So you can see here this man making the link between fear and anger and the impact that that can have on his relationships. Then in the bottom right, being a dad, trying to teach a child not to be angry and not to swear and not to lash out while you don't understand it yourself. It sounds impossible. And I think that really captures the challenge for these men where they've got quite poor emotional regulation themselves of then trying to support a child to develop that emotional regulation. So the next theme is around making sense of violent behaviour, which I've captured with this idea, I thought it's normal, but it's not. And this really captures ideas about where men understand the violence comes from, how it gets triggered, and also their capacity to acknowledge some of those behaviours. So at the top here, where this part of this theme comes from, that's what I've grown seeing up. Fights and violence and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised I grew up being violent because I thought it's normal, but obviously it's not. And that was quite a strong thing that came out from several fathers. Then down in the bottom left, I get intimidated quite easily. So as a reaction, I try and become the more threatening one, you know, not meaning to, but it's like a safety mechanism I give myself. And you can see here how with the support of For Baby's Sake, this man is starting to understand what happens in his relationships and what his triggers are. Then over in the bottom right, I know you get a chance to change. Everyone says, well, he was like that, so you should be the opposite, talking about his father. I think in your mindset, sometimes you just can't control the way you are because of what you've seen in the past. So we can see there the challenge is actually with acknowledging and being fully accountable for behaviour. There's still this struggle between, can I take control of this or not? And then finally, this theme of breaking the cycle, which is very much what For Baby's Sake is about. And I'm proof that people can change. So this really captures how men have started to understand this intergenerational transmission of risk. So we've got a few final quotes to share here. So up at the top, I just want him to have a better relationship with his dad than I had with mine, really. Because even though you think it doesn't affect you, it affects you quite badly, really, if that makes sense. He's really starting to understand that cycle. And then over on the right, this is my last opportunity to do something right for one of my children. And I think that really captures the importance of the baby being such a motivator for change. And finally, one of my favourite quotes of this study He was never there. He doesn't know who I am. He wasn't there when I needed him and stuff like that. And especially now, I'm trying to do the complete opposite, where I'm there if you need me, I'm there if you want me. And I think that really captures what it means to break the cycle of this intergenerational risk of abuse and neglect. So just to sum up, I think this highlights there are numerous challenges in the transition to fatherhood. Men's own mental health difficulties, their poor emotional regulation, their own traumatic histories, but the baby is very much motivated to change, and trauma-informed therapeutic interventions captured in entirely by the way that For Baby's Sake works really have got the potential to support this change. So if you would like to hear a bit more about this research and read some more details, the citation for that is at the bottom. But just to say thank you once again to For Baby's Sake for inviting me to talk. It's been a real privilege, and congratulations again on the animation.
Thank you, Jill. Gosh, that was really powerful, wasn't it? Bringing the voice of the father. We just don't listen to the fathers enough. We don't hear babies, and we often don't listen to fathers either. And I think, if nothing else, this has demonstrated just what you can achieve when you do start to listen to all those involved. So Jill, thank you very, very much indeed. That's great. And now we're going to move on to one of the stars of the show, because she put this amazing film together. Emma, you're going to, I think, talk to us about that. So Emma Lazenby is the director of the For Baby's Sake animated film.
Hello. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm, as Cheryl says, I'm Emma Lazenby. I'm the director of the film that we've just watched, and I'm also the director of Formed Films. We're a not-for-profit community interest company based in Bristol. We specialise in storytelling through people and patients' voices, in collaboration with charities and health professionals and hospitals to make animated films, illustrations and audio stories for medical education. Animation's a really perfect medium to share information and experiences in a really emotive way, especially in medical and health and social issues. It's kind of compact and powerful. It keeps people's anonymity, and it gives them the freedom to tell their story and for it to be heard without any prejudice. So it's been such an honour to collaborate with For Baby's Sake. It's been amazing. I was so excited when they contacted me, looking at the work from the beginning and reading the case studies and hearing people's experiences. It was obvious this powerful transformation that they have on people's lives, and the mum and dad, but especially the baby. And it feels that there is such a need for this service everywhere. So when they got in touch, it felt like a dream project, which feels great. There were parents that came forward that wanted to be advocates and to share their experience to help For Baby's Sake, and they consented to interview. So about a year ago now, I went with Judith, one of the For Baby's Sake team, to a parents' home in London. I spoke separately with mum and dad. They were very intimate interviews, but both of them, speaking to me separately, were very open and generous in sharing their journeys. And I think their anonymity really helped for them to be able to do this. So they told me their journeys, and we recorded the baby. So all the voices you hear in the film are their authentic stories. From this, I had about an hour long interview with each parent. Each was edited down into 5-minute versions of their stories, and then sent separately to mum and to dad, so they could voice any concerns or reconfirm or take away their consent, and they were both happy. So the intention of the film is to tell the 3 stories of mum, dad and baby. And to do this, filmmaking is quite an obsessive thing. I listened to their stories over and over. I read the case studies, the information, the research from For Baby's Sake about this this generational cycle of abuse and neglect, and how how people break this cycle, and through For Baby's Sake to help people can break this cycle. So we knew what we needed to show, and we knew the story we needed to tell. And we worked very much in collaboration with me and Amanda and Judith, speaking a lot about what happened in the film. Now, we weaved the stories together of the parents and the baby and made a rough plan of what would happen in the film, which is called an animatic. So it's basically all of the sound, all of the parents' voices, all weaved together with storyboards and timed out to be a 3-minute film. And so through this makes the actual film really, it didn't really change from the animatic that we passed between for Baby's Sake and For Med Films. So when we were all happy with the animatic, all we had to do was make the film. The animation production started in mid-March, just as COVID lockdown began. And so instead of having a bigger team, which we usually do, we had quite a skeleton crew, which was Sophie Smith, the producer, Vic Stevens, the editor, Johnny Crew, the sound designer, and Hugh Cowling, who made the lovely music. And I animated the film, all of the film here on my canal boat in Wiltshire, which sometimes had quite a lot of technical issues, but it was a very memorable time. And the bird song at the end of the film is the sound of lockdown from my boat. I'm so proud of what we've made together, and to have been involved in such a amazing work. I think since knowing about For Baby's Sake, I've been so in awe of the work that they do, and it's so desperately needed everywhere. It just needs to be everywhere. So I hope this film moves people and helps people to give more support and to bring For Baby's Sake into their area. Thank you.
Emma, thank you so much, and thank you so much to your team. Yes, indeed. Give them a big clap. What a fascinating window into your world, which is so different probably from most of our worlds. And you know, the process to then create something as powerful, but actually simple as well. And I think that's the strength of the film. The messages come over so powerfully, but actually quite simply too. And that's really important, I think, if you're going to get people to take messages away and use them, and for them to drive change. So excellent. Well, we're nearly at the end of the morning, but our next speaker is Amanda McIntyre, our CEO of the For Baby's Sake Trust. Amanda, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us today. We're thrilled. Thank you to Cheryl and all our speakers. A special thank you to Frank as our first ambassador. And of course, the biggest thank you this morning goes to the mum and the dad and the baby for sharing their stories so generously, and to Emma for honouring them so beautifully with an extraordinary film. We're so proud of you all. What prompted us? Some people ask, what prompted you to create the For Baby's Sake programme? Well, it began with Stelio's vision to protect infants without a voice, and his ever-inspiring determination to get to the root causes and find the truly sustainable solution. And so, For Baby's Sake seeks to break the cycle of domestic abuse and to give babies the best start in life. Crucially, it includes the support for the parents to deal with the trauma from their own childhoods, from their past, which is so often unaddressed. It's a whole person programme, whole family, and intergenerational, and it's also perfectly timed. Both parents join the For Baby's Sake programme during pregnancy, whether together as a couple or not, and the family may be supported until the baby is age 2. And so many of you watching and joining us today know the importance of those 1001 days. Each parent has their own For Baby's Sake practitioner, and those relationships are transformational. The teamwork between the practitioners enhances safeguarding and risk management. In May this year, as Jill mentioned, we published an independent evaluation of the programme, led by a prestigious group of academics from the UK and Canada, led by King's College London. They concluded that For Baby's Sake is the first programme of its kind to fill an important gap in provision, and its unique approach addresses key limitations in the response to domestic abuse. This scale of innovation is credit to many people, our own teams, our local authority partners, our original 3 clinical co-designers, and also to so many experts in different fields who generously shared their learning so that we could build on their achievement and create something new. Thank you. We now have 4 sites. The first 2 opened in 2015, one in Hertfordshire and the other in London, working across Westminster, Kensington and Chelsea and Hammersmith and Fulham. Last year, we opened our 3rd site in Cambridgeshire, and in January this year, we opened in Blackpool. All 4 of our sites have shown remarkable resilience during COVID-19. The parents during lockdown kept up their sessions with practitioners by phone and video technology. And some parents actually find it easier to work through particularly painful issues in this way. And more parents kept joining the programme. Parents have fed back to us on the value of their relationships with their practitioners, the flexibility within the programme, and particularly the support they received with their mental health and emotional regulation in such a difficult time. Our learning during lockdown is prompting further innovation. We've realised that using technology, we could reach families located anywhere in the UK. So we're creating For Baby's Sake Connect this autumn, using existing resources to engage a small number of families initially, while building on experience and raising funds to build capacity. The addition of For Baby's Sake Connect will reach families that don't yet have the benefit of a local dedicated area-based team. This will also enable us to scale up the programme more rapidly. Clearly, we're sharing this learning at a crucial time. COVID-19 has created a new urgency to avoid a shadow pandemic, while the domestic abuse legislation, as Nicole said, is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to turn the tide on domestic abuse. It was indeed great progress that the Domestic Abuse Bill now recognises that children are victims of domestic abuse in their own right. They aren't merely witnesses. We would like to see this clause going further to be explicit that the definition of children covers babies, including unborn babies. Otherwise, those babies risk being overlooked, despite domestic abuse being particularly harmful to babies and to parents, and often starting in pregnancy. Giving babies a voice in UK law would be a signal of radical change, that the UK is not going to waste precious time for babies and their parents, and that we will seize every opportunity to break the cycles of domestic abuse and childhood trauma. Of course, we are keen that the For Baby's Sake programme continues to play and grows in the part it plays in the national effort to turn this tide. We encourage you to get in touch if you would like to work with us to reach more families. Also, let's keep learning together. We will follow up this webinar with a note to you all, picking up the key messages, including the things in the chat, for which thank you so much. And we will be sharing a recording of this webinar. Please do share the extraordinary film, which is going live today on our website. Yes, partly to share the news about the For Baby's Sake programme, but also for a much bigger reason, because the parents offer insights that are relevant to so much of the national effort to break the cycle of domestic abuse and childhood trauma. And even more importantly, when you share this film, the authentic voices of the parents might just inspire others to begin their own journeys from help to hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And we are nearly at the end of the morning, but we're going to actually conclude the morning by playing the film again. So please don't disappear yet, because I think to see it again will probably be, allow you to perhaps pick up things you didn't see the first time. But it's my responsibilities now to bring the morning to an end, and I want to do that with some massive thank yous, particularly to Stelio and Amanda for their vision and their funding to make this happen on behalf of babies and the next generation. And, what more important work could anybody be doing, frankly? But more widely, to all of you, I've just noticed we've got nearly 400 looking in. And we will certainly promote the morning and the films through the Institute, and we hope that many others will too, so that many more people get to hear about this important work. I have a feeling actually you need to be aware you're going to be deluged. You're going to be absolutely deluged with people wanting to take this work to their local areas. And, you know, and that's fantastic. And let's hope that you then get some government support to make that happen, because that would make it happen fast, right? I know that. But thank you to all the panelists today. Thank you to Emma and her team for making the fantastic film. Thank you particularly to the very brave parents. And you know, when parents speak out, people listen, don't they? And I think that's so important. For me as a health visitor, this period of lockdown particularly has really shone a light on hidden babies and hidden families. And very sadly, health visitors are reporting more and more child protection issues and more domestic violence as a result of lockdown, which isn't really a surprise. But the challenge is actually reaching these families, obviously, during the times of COVID. And mistakes were made. Many health visitors got redeployed into nursing roles. But fortunately, most of them are back now and they're working very hard to pick up. But we can do more, we can all do more, and we must do it together. And I think that's a big message to take away today. What this has shown is fantastic collaboration from many different people. So from me, many congratulations. I'm going to speak on behalf of the audience, although I can see the messages flying in, well done everybody, and so on. And every success really in the next stages with this, and I know we're going to be hearing very much more about it. But before we finish, please could we ask you, the audience, to give us two quick polls, two quick questions. We'd just like to get some instant feedback, because you know that's fair, isn't it, on behalf of all the hard work. So if you could just respond first of all to, will you share this animation? And then secondly, the next question coming up, how important is it for the domestic abuse legislation to meet the needs of babies, including unborn babies and their parents? And that one's coming up now. And actually to have a powerful response to that will be very helpful for lobbying. Okay. So I'm going to hand back to the For Baby's Sake team now to run the film for a second time. And thank you all for being with us today. Oh wow, look at the results. Fantastic. Are we going to see the other one? Yes, fantastic. Well, there you are. Again, many congratulations. That's all your hard work, and you know, tremendous response from those who are sharing it with you for the first time.
Both my mum and dad probably had their own challenges growing up. Certainly my mum did.
My dad was an alcoholic. He was very angry, very depressed.
Things were good and then they'd be bad, and there was a lot of instability.
I was a teenage delinquent, stealing cars, selling drugs, just making a nuisance of myself.
I learned to be quiet and keep things inside, and then really escaped in my imagination, and that's where I came alive.
I met my girlfriend. It was kind of like in the movies.
It turned my world upside down. We had that bond.
And within 2 months of that, she was pregnant. I think we both kind of went into panic mode.
It was very stressful. The idea of being homeless and pregnant. Where are we going to get the money?
We started having quite bad arguments.
And he put his hands around my neck until I couldn't breathe. Which is what led us into For Baby's Sake.
I kind of came into the program thinking, am I just broken beyond repair?
The practitioner, she helped me find so much clarity. It triggered me into a very dark place. Obviously we were dealing with domestic abuse, but it didn't feel like we were just pointing the finger.
He was very respectful, listened very carefully to what I was saying. How on earth are we going to have a kid? And just helped me come up with practical solutions.
To to be able to work through these self-destructive patterns, make some peace with the past, putting tools in place to keep me safe and to keep him safe too.
At every stage we had someone that really was trained and knew what they were doing, explaining to us what our baby was going through. And we had more space for us to figure out our relationship.
It's allowed me to heal and come into myself. What are you doing? It's given me confidence to be a good mum.
I can be a bit less erratic now. I can live a normalish life and have a family.
He has two parents that want to do whatever it takes to be the best parents they can be for him.
He's had the best start in my family as far back as anyone can remember, and that is not an accident.
I don't know how many times the two of us have said thank God for baby's sake. It's been life-changing.